Hello, everybody, and welcome to More Questions Than Answers News, where we answer all the questions from all the Michael Fernandezes in the world, and only Michael Fernandezes. But we end up giving you more questions than answers. I'm your host, Michael Fernandez, and today our country is ehSpain, Spain. Here you can have a very low information map of Spain politically. In that same way, AP Euro kind of talks about Spain with that much of a bit of information. If I can recall anything, maybe colonialism, Picasso, the Spanish Civil War. Anything else? Not sure. But I hope this news section can give you a bunch more information about current events happening in Spain. First up, we got to have our daily dose of COVID news. Spain is initiating their program of vaccinating 30,000 homeless people in the country. They make up only 0.07% of the population, but it's the government's efforts towards truly giving this health procedure to everyone they can in the country. There are some challenges that the country is facing so far, in that the homeless population has a distrust in the government, as often the government played a role in the economic crises that led many homeless people into the situation they are in. And also within the autonomous regions of Spain, some funding have been cut for public health care, and healthcare may not be the priority of homeless people. We connect this to AP Euro because we wonder, with the terms of liberalism and conservatism, what is the government's role in giving access to healthcare? Is access to healthcare an individual right granted that the government should give? Or is this something that the government should not participate in at all? While liberalism and conservatism are not the same as they were back in the 18th century, this is still an ongoing debate. We also have many questions from Michael Fernandezes around the world, and we do want to make some information from our one-man research team pretty clear. The PSOE, the center-left party, is in favor of public access to healthcare. They even had a homelessness strategy back in 2015 to research more on the rights of the homelessness and how society perceives of them when they give healthcare access to them. We hope to give you more information on these COVID news soon. Our next topic, focusing on the environment with Spain. A Spanish study reveals that the European bison are potential natural firefighters into wildfires. Wildfires have become a huge issue in the region of Andalusia, where almost 10,000 hectares of wildfires are burning per year. One thing to note, the European bison is extinct from Spain and the entire Iberian Peninsula. It now mainly resides in Poland and Romania, but the presence has not been a huge thing. However, despite these studies that have been released, the government is not funding any imports of bison. Instead, it's only the private sector and individual people that are buying from Poland or Romania, these European bison. The lack of research probably is why the government has not supported this, but it's also important to note that Spain historically has not put a lot of regulation towards forest management in the first place, and that could reflect why there's little efforts done. We connect this to AP Euro because think about all the environmental processes that have happened because of things like the Columbian trade, and also wondering this focus of nature that's happened like in colonialism or in imperialism, whether or not nature really matters. Maybe that has seeped into Spain today, where whether or not the government cares as much about their own environments is up to debate, but that's a connection there. We also, again, have lovely questions from all the Michael Fernandezes across the world. And our one-man team, our research team, tells us that overall, the government has put efforts towards reforestation programs and methods, but they've been historically unsuccessful. And so politicians in Spain are not necessarily in favor of supporting these programs because they feel like that could possibly be something that's a bad rep considering the history that environmental programs have in Spain. However, to show possibly something on the good side for the environment in Spain, the Spanish government is proposing that all public highways become toll roads by 2024. The question in current debate is whether or not these efforts were meant to recover the environment or to recover funding that was lost by the government from COVID. The current decision is between making the tolls a yearly fee or a per kilometer type of fee. where the yearly fee would be just a one-time fee that Spanish citizens pay every year versus the per kilometer fee, which would increase your fee the more you drive on roads. Obviously, environmental scientists are in favor of the per kilometer fee because it incentivizes less use of roads. Additionally, we want to connect this to AP Euro, and we can relate it to industrialization and how the impacts of industrialization have impacted the poor more than the rich. If Spain was to use, for example, the yearly fee, the rich would easily be able to pay off that fee, and their driving behaviors probably wouldn't change. In the same way, industrialization had massive effects on the overcrowding and unsanitation of the poor people. But what did that really affect on the rich people? At the end of the day, they were the ones benefiting. These distinctions between the bourgeoisie, the rich, or the middle class, and then like the proletariat for the poor are still seeping in kind of into history today with things like this. It's important to note that we do have some great questions, of course, from the Michael Fernandezes across the world, but also Spain has had some strategies towards promoting electric vehicles and also some actions to lower emissions from the tourist sector. It also brings the question, what has the government done for things that it controls, such as the highways? The OECD, an international organization community, has suggested to the Spanish government that they adapt more to an international environmental agenda and they increase strategic environmental assessments. That means, in a way, Spain has been doing their job, but of course, they can do better. Now let's shift the turn to more political news. Let's go to Ceuta. Ceuta is a Spanish enclave off the tip of Morocco. So it's in Africa, but it's almost the connection point between Morocco and Spain. They're only separated by the Strait of Gibraltar. But recently, in the past week, there was an influx of 8,000 Moroccan migrants within the span of 48 hours. The reason behind this huge influx is unsure, but of course, we can take note that the GDP per capita, which can reflect the living conditions of the countries, such between Spain and Morocco, is almost at 10 times different, where Morocco's is like 2,000 per year, and Spain's is almost 20,000 per year. Obviously, there are economic benefits for migrants if they move to Spain, whether that's illegally or legally, they can possibly have a better life economically. We connect this to any immigration influxes we've seen in AP Euro, whether that's rural to urban because of the enclosure movement or industrialization, and also immigrants that came because of colonialism or imperialism, or they came after those colonies became decolonized. But again, we have lovely questions from the Michael Fernandezes across the world. Thank you for these questions. We want to take note in a very general sense that Spanish relations with Morocco are not necessarily tense on the state level. Spain trades with Morocco quite frequently, but there can be possibly political socialization that leads to some nationalistic sentiment that is anti-Moroccan. You wouldn't see this on a national level, but it's possible that there are mentalities or ideologies that aren't in favor of the Muslim majority Morocco compared to the Christian majority Spain. But an interesting question we got is what the Spanish government does for Moroccans that come to the country. And we've actually seen that some education. Oh, I'm sorry. We have some breaking news. Breaking, but not breaking news. How far is Morocco going to pressure the EU? Concerns are rising. Well then, news on the spot. We're getting that Spanish officials all across the country are rising and increasing in their statements about Morocco pressuring the EU to maintain ties in their favor. What does that mean exactly so going back to the influx of 8,000 Moroccan migrants, they're saying that was a planned effort by the Moroccan government to pressure the EU and Spain to not support Western Sahara, but instead support Morocco on being the sovereign nation that controls Western Sahara. Let's break that down. Spain recently provided COVID-19 relief to the leaders of the rebel movement in Western Sahara, those who want Western Saharan independence. But instead, this fired back possibly through the influx of 8,000 Moroccan migrants, in which Morocco intended to bring these migrants into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta so that Spain would feel more pressured to abide by Morocco's political agenda. This is clearly a complex relationship. And we're running out of time and we can't answer all the microfinances questions all across the world. But one thing to note is, what would Spain benefit if Morocco did not have Western Sahara? How would Spain benefit if they did have Western Sahara? It's interesting because comparing to AP Euro, alliance systems formed during World War I and World War II did lead to some disastrous things. An alliance between Morocco and the US, and an alliance between Spain and the EU and Western Sahara are present. Maybe they probably won't lead to effects such as World War II or World War I, but alliances are still very much a part of the complex maneuvering and between the relationship between Morocco and Spain. Well then, our time is up. Thank you for being a part of More Questions Than Answers News today. And please submit your questions to our website. Thank you again, and bye to all the Michael Fernandezes across the world. See ya.